All right, let's get right into it. During World War II, there were countless dangers, but few weapons inspired the kind of cold, hard fear as a little landmine called the Bouncing Betty. And what made it so terrifying wasn't just that it exploded, it was how it exploded. This was a masterful and horrifying piece of mechanical engineering, and today we're going to break down exactly how this thing worked.
So this is the big question, isn't it? How in the world does a static object buried under the dirt suddenly leap into the air right before it detonates? Well, the answer is in a pretty brilliant and absolutely brutal two-stage design.
Okay, so it all kicks off with the trigger. Before anything can go boom, the mine has to know that someone is there. And the way it did that was with a sensor that was deceptively simple.
That's it. Just three little pressure-sensitive prongs sticking out of the top. You'd barely see them, hidden under a bit of dirt or some leaves. But just a little bit of pressure on any one of those three prongs was all it took to start the whole deadly sequence.
So, what happens when one of those prongs gets pushed down? It releases this thing, a spring-loaded striker pin. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a classic mousetrap. The pressure on the prong is you touching the cheese, and that striker pin is the arm snapping forward with incredible force. It slams into a primer, and that single, purely mechanical action kicks off the whole chemical reaction. The second that striker pin makes contact, a whole series of events begins, all happening underground and out of sight in just a fraction of a second. Now, this is not the main event, not by a long shot, but it is absolutely critical for what comes next.
This gives us the perfect roadmap for the whole process. We've just covered step 1 and 2, the pressure on the prongs, and the release of that striker pin. Next up is the propulsion charge, which then leads to the big one, the main detonation. Let's zoom in on that propulsion charge for a second.
This is where the genius of the design really comes into play. That first explosion is actually pretty small, almost like a big firecracker. Its one and only job is propulsion. It acts like a little piston, just to kick the main body of the mine out of the ground and up into the air. It's all about getting the weapon to the perfect height before the real damage is done.
And that brings us to the feature that gives the Bouncing Betty its infamous name. See, this isn't a mine that explodes at your feet. It's a mine that literally jumps up to meet you. This two-stage detonation is what made it so incredibly notorious.
This chart just breaks it down so clearly. You've got the small, controlled burst underground that's all about lift, and then you have the main event, the big, powerful blast. The two are connected by a short tether, and the length of that tether is the key piece of timing that makes the entire deadly thing work. So here's the bottom line. The mine body shoots into the air, that little tether pulls taut, and that action triggers the main detonator. The result? The whole thing explodes at about waist height. So instead of the blast being absorbed by the ground, it was directed right at a soldier's torso and upper body, which is just devastating.
So now that we know how it works, let's talk about the impact. The mechanics of this device had a terrifyingly human cost. This wasn't just another weapon. Its unique function created a very specific and very personal kind of terror on the battlefield.
So let's just recap the key features right here. You've got a trigger that's almost impossible to see. You've got a unique waist-high detonation that was far more likely to injure or kill. And when you put those things together, it created this unbelievable psychological fear that could slow down entire armies.
In the end, it's hard to describe it any other way. It was brutal, for sure. But the Bouncing Betty was a truly effective and, yes, terrifying piece of mechanical engineering. It didn't need any electronics, no complex chemistry, just springs, pins, and two very carefully measured explosions.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The Bouncing Betty is proof that sometimes the most effective, most feared technologies are based on incredibly simple physics. It really makes you wonder, what other simple mechanical devices have had such a massive and sometimes devastating impact on the course of human history?